All right. Kevin back with you for another episode of the $1,000,000 Relationships Podcast. And today I am here with Randy Molland. Randy, welcome to the show, man. So awesome to have you today.
I'm so fired up to be here, Kevin. This is going to be so much fun.
Yes, it is. And I'll tell you, you know, I, I mean, hosting this podcast for the last couple of years, I think, like I said, I think we just released episode like 197 or something like that. And hosting this podcast has been hands down the most rewarding thing I have done in my 28 years as an entrepreneur. And what makes it so cool is like how you and I connected. We connected through a mutual friend, Brandon Fong. Brandon did this thing on Zoom a couple of weeks ago for his birthday, a big birthday celebration, and he invited a bunch of his entrepreneur friends, and that's where you and I met. That's how we got connected. Brendan ended up putting us in this breakout room together. That because he's like, Randy and Kevin should spend some time to talk and get to know each other, and so here we are. And what is so cool about this is relations. I have long believed that as entrepreneurs, relationships are our most valuable asset. Everything else stems from that. And when we connect to somebody, a guy like Brandon, I absolutely love Brandon. I met him years ago in Genius Network, which is a mastermind group put on by this guy, Joe Polish. I've known Joe since 1997. And when I got seated next to Brandon one day at one of those meetings, and I was just really struck by how young he was. And I was like, wow. And I got to talking with him. I was like, you know what? I don't even know that I remember what I was doing when I was your age, but I sure as heck wasn't in a group like this.
Absolutely.
So we totally hit it off. And so now anybody that Brandon would say, hey, Kev, I think you should talk with so-and-so, I'm totally in. And it is just such a powerful way to meet new, like-minded, right-fit people. And you and I have already had conversations, got to know each other, and like now, here we are doing this podcast.
Brandon is one of the best connectors I know. He's become one of my best friends. We talk all the time about it, and absolutely love how he puts people together and how intentional he is with it.
Yeah.
I think it's one thing to make an introduction, but it's another to say, I need you two to connect because you have the same skills, or you can serve each other's problems, or there's a lot of connection there. And that's what he did at his birthday, better than anybody I've ever seen do it on a whim. It wasn't a paid program.
No.
It wasn't anything. It was just his own birthday party. And so huge shout out to our boy Brandon for absolutely crushing it. If you're not following him, Brandon Fong is seriously one of the best interviewers, connectors. He's just an absolutely amazing human.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've spoke with a number of people who he's interviewed for his podcast, and every one of them have said, I had never had a podcast experience like Brandon's before. He just goes so in depth with people, and he does a ton of research on everybody that he has as a guest. Hours of research, on each person, and it shows. It comes through.
I was just on his show, and he just went deep into the archive, and I was like, bro, where did you even get this information? Like, did you call my mom to ask her about this? Because I have no idea how he got it. So yeah, he goes deep. That's for sure.
Yeah. So. Well, I'll tell you what I wanted. I'd like to start our conversation, Randy, by just kind of turning it over to you, so that we can set a little bit of context. Because what I want to do is kind of really give the listeners a good picture of who you are and what you're all about. And so, I'll give you the opportunity to share, what you do, who you serve, what inspires you most about the work you do, and just, and just turn it over to you to share what feels right for you to share.
Yeah, the favorite thing for me to share, Kev, is how I got into what I do. So I run an organization called Go Big to Give Big. And basically what we do is we support organizations to add giving initiatives to their businesses so that as they scale their revenue, so does their impact. That's what I do. That's what I help. I consult people with, and I coach people. I run a community on them, all that kind of stuff. But what got me there is an interesting story.
Okay.
So when I was 25 years old, I bought my first house. And I had a good mentor I was an electrician at the time. I have a good mentor that took me under his wing. And he said, Randy, in 25 years, when you pay this house off, you're not going to have a mortgage. You're going to finally have some financial freedom. Look at your parents. They're 60 and they're still paying their house off. Like, you're going to be, in such a great spot. And so I was on path to create this, white picket fence dream life of retiring at, 50, 55, and a few years early. And unfortunately, 2 weeks after he said that to me and I bought my house, he passed away in a job site accident. And so here I watched my best friend pass away at 42 years old, which was the same person that told me how great life was going to be when I was 50. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to sit there and say, well, that doesn't add up. Clearly, I wanted to do something sooner. And so I just Googled how to make a ton of money and never work again. And I built a real estate investment company on the pure greed of wanting to retire by the time I was 30 and the pure trauma and pain of watching my friend die at 42, saying, I want to live life to the maximum today.
Yeah.
And I got so caught up in the hustle culture and the grind. And a lot of young entrepreneurs will know this. This whole thing of wanting to retire at a quick and early age is a big fad right now. And so I was into it, and I did such a good job that by the time I was 28, I worked myself into a non-epileptic seizure. My body shut down to zero, and it couldn't handle the trauma, the pain, and what I was putting it through with the stress and the growth of the business. And so I had a second realization at 28 of, you know what? Maybe retiring at 30 also wasn't the option. And so then I said, you know what, God, give me a sign. Like, I clearly got the message I'm not supposed to retire at 50, and I've now understood the message that I'm not meant to retire at 30. What am I meant to do? And that's when I heard a quote that it said, if you want to make $1 million a year, build a business that does 2 million, give $1 million away, and you'll be the happiest millionaire on the planet. And that's when I realized if I started focusing on the impact that I could make in the world, and I started becoming a 7-figure giver, that the world would take care of me. The universe would take care of all the financial needs for the rest of my life if I just focused on that. And so that's what I did. I started taking all my companies and adding impact initiatives to them. I took my meetup that was free. I made it paid and donated 100% of the money from the door tickets. And we all of a sudden went from 30 people on a monthly meetup to over 120 people on a monthly meetup because I was selling impact, not meetups. And everyone wanted to be a part of it. And I was like, this is really cool. As soon as I added impact to something, I watched it grow. So then I went into my real estate portfolio and I said, what if we do this here? So we started donating $10 per door per month from our real estate portfolio. So our 10plex donated $100 a month and 20plex 200 and so on and so on. And all of a sudden we went on to go raise, $13 million in 12 months because of the impact we were selling, not the investments. And I was like, this is crazy. Everywhere I go that I add impact to, the revenue just follows it when I lead with impact. So I went on to go build, a pretty high rated mastermind and do a lot of bunch of different stuff. And that's what's led me to where I am today, where I realized when we start adding impact initiatives to our businesses, for a human, we can start beating burnout, beating exhaustion, beating fatigue by being inspired by what we do. Every time we closed more properties, we helped more kids. The bigger we went, the more we could give. And when we start adding passion and purpose to our income streams, now we're more excited to grow them. And we want to put the work in to make it there, as opposed to our own personal greed. When we do it for ourselves, Kev, it's not as strong as if we do it to serve somebody else in humanity. Yeah. And so that's what I do now is as I go in and I help structure that inside organizations. I share my story with them, give them the insights to it. I show them the metrics and numbers. 89% of consumers would rather work with a brand that has a giving initiative versus one that doesn't. So when we look at trying to capture attention and getting that kind of stuff, how do we draw attention with impact? How do we do good with impact? How does it affect your team? How does it affect everyone around you and your personal self? And we do all those initiatives. And I also run something called the Impact Circle, which is just a place where I put all these people that want to talk more about the impact they were making more than the income they were earning into a space. And one of the coolest things, Kevin, I'll end with this, is when I started putting people together to talk about the impact they wanted to create, we got rid of income disparity. Sometimes when you go into masterminds or groups, the person that's got, a multi 7-figure business has a hard time relating to someone who's got the low 6-figure business because they're just on different levels. Yep. But when you start talking about the impact they're making and the kids they're helping or the charities they want to support or what they're building in their businesses to go do, Now, all of a sudden, they're on equal playing grounds because it's not about how much you make, it's about the impact that you make. So we've created this playground now where we can take 6-figure earners up to 9-figure earners and put them on calls together, and everyone wants to support each other and see each other win because of the impact that they're making.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a bit of a ramble
Wow.
there. So
No, I mean, this is huge. You know, it's interesting. I'm trying to think of Ben's last name. I'm having a brain fart right now, but Ben is one of the original. I think he's the third person ever hired inside of a nonprofit organization called Folds of Honor. And Folds of Honor, what their mission is, they support. It's been until recently, it was uh, children of military veterans that died in duty. And what they do is they put these kids through college and stuff, and they have given millions of dollars away to support them. And Ben was even telling me, he's like, you know, Kevin, he's like, we had so many applications, qualified applications. Now we've done a lot and we do a lot, but he's like, we always have way more qualified applications than we're able to fund. And now they've also added first responders as well. They also serve children, families of first responders who have died on duty. And he told me, he's like, Kevin, he's like, our biggest donors are companies, large companies, corporations.
yes.
And he's like, we implement a giving program and we get their whole company involved. And it completely transforms the culture of the company because now everybody has this common goal and stuff of giving and stuff. And I've experienced this firsthand myself as well, that you're absolutely right. It brings people together, this common goal of giving and serving others and stuff. It's huge. It's
when you look at the statistics to back up what you just said, 93% of employees are happier with their employer if they do a volunteering initiative together. By getting your team to volunteer, by doing the service work, 93% of people said they were happier with their employers. Isn't that crazy?
huge.
When you ask them to do something of their own time and go serve, and most companies now are saying, hey, we'll take off, a Friday afternoon, or we'll give you one day to go volunteer as long as you can prove where you're volunteering and on what you're doing. You can have a paid day off to go volunteer because of the impact that it's happening on their organizations. And we're seeing this through everything, top to bottom. Sales reps now, when we start talking to sales reps, instead of just saying, hey, we need to make an extra 50 grand this month to, hit our quotas, it's like, hey, what if you were able to go put 50 kids through sport this month with the sales that you were able to make? And every time they got a sale, they checked off the kids that they were able to help. We use different language, we use different iterations, and that's changing people's philosophy and their psychology around it so that they're inspired by the giving and the impact, which then makes them want to go do more sales and draw in more revenue and go volunteer their time. And all of a sudden you build this really cool culture in an entire organization from the top down that the leader says, I want us to be an impact-driven organization. Now your whole culture is involved in it. People don't leave your organization, or when people are happy, your turnover is way less. People want to get hired more. I've been a complete byproduct of that. I poached 2 people from other companies because mine's an impact-driven company, and they took over $100,000 cut to come work for our organization because they were sick of the corporate cutthroat world and they wanted to do something with impact. And now they joined our startup and they're scaling with us and they're 10 times happier. So we're stealing employees from other companies because we talk about our impact in our job applications. We say, when you come to our organization, you're expected to do a little bit of volunteering. You're going to be working with companies on impact initiatives. Here's how we do our impact initiatives. For every 5 clients we work with, we support 1 nonprofit for free. And they know that they're going to get to be a part of a lot of these initiatives. And it's just been an incredible, incredible world to play in. And I mean, we've seen it from the beginning with Tom's Shoes and Bomba Socks and a bunch of these other organizations. It's now at a point where consumers are almost expecting it, right? It's to a point where if you don't have a giving initiative and you don't talk about it properly, you're going to get left behind. There's not going to be a space for you in consumerism where they just won't buy from you anymore. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Wow. Man, that's powerful stuff. Okay, so there ain't no hiding how passionate you are about this,
That is true. That is true.
Okay, so now that we've got a little bit of context and people not only know who Randy is, but what inspires Randy, we'll switch gears here just a little bit. And so I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of the listeners. So, Randy, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons that completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And Randy, I'm really excited to hear your story around this topic of relationships.
Yeah, we briefly chatted before, and I was like, I could probably give a list of 50 people if you wanted.
We'd be
I'm a
here for a while, wouldn't we?
big relationship capital guy, and it's been one of the biggest things. But it started with my mentor in the electrical industry. Nobody really wanted to work with him because nobody understood him.
Okay.
I was young. I understood him. I come with all the perks of dyslexia and ADHD and wanting to be driven and understanding things fast and differently. And my mentor really saw that in me and took me under his wing. And he is one of the people that changed the trajectory of my life by
Okay.
saying, Randy, you're 22 years old and I see a future for you. It's buying a house at 25. It's becoming this human that I think you can be. And it's ironic, this just came up when I shared the story. It's his birthday in a few days. And that's why I wanted to honor him on that, because, that's my friend that passed away, and it's been almost 8 years now. And I'll never forget the moment that I started working with him. Because of the impact that it had and just how he was able to see something in me that nobody else had saw. And so he's the first one to ever really see something in me. The second one is also my father. My dad said something to me very prolific at a young age. He said, Randy, build your reputation, not your bank account. And he said, anything you do in life is around your reputation, and you can always build back your bank account. And I just took that to heart. And so when I was, as an electrician, I was always trying to figure out how I could just be the guy on the job sites that people wanted. How could I provide services? But then now, as I became an entrepreneur, it just became everything's about service. How can I help people? Who can I introduce people to? I don't care about making a sale when I make an introduction. I don't care about a referral fee. I'm building my reputation, not my bank account. And so when my dad put that into me, that just gave me the keys now to go build really strong relationships with people, getting connected to my coach, Trevor McGregor. Man, that guy is, same thing. It's these mentors that just see something in myself. I'm still young. I'm 32 now. And I met my coach 3 years ago, and he said, Randy, I hear go big to give big, and all I see is you changing the world. How do I coach you? How do I support you? I want to be the guy that stands in your corner and says, yes, this is a world-changing movement, and I want to champion you up to make this happen. Like, to get guys like that in your corner, unbelievable. So those are a few of the three main mentors in my life that have really took me on the whim, gave me some of the best advice I've ever had, and then helped propel me in this journey that I'm on.
Yeah. So if you look at these three people as example, so and I'm sure you can come up with lots of examples for the question I'm going to ask you. But if you look back, and let's look at a situation where you were empowered and you got to make a really big impact, and you also know hands down that would have never happened if not for your relationship with whichever one. What's an example of that?
Yeah, I mean, has to be Coach Trevor McGregor. When I was, he took me in and told me that Go Big to Give Big had a lot of potential in this world and something that I wanted to do. It wasn't just that he saw the potential in me. It was that he took me and introduced me to a whole different network of humans. He said, Randy, you're used to hanging out with the 6 and 7 figure earners, high 6, low 7 figure earners. That's cool. But I want to show you this other side of the network where there's people that, if your services are less than $15,000, they don't even look at you. And that was a defining moment when I was selling, $3,000 to $10,000 coaching programs. And I'm going into these conversations like, you can't offer anything less than 15 grand. So I'm going into the conversation saying, I guess I'll start at 15 to 25. And next thing you know, you're closing these deals and think were possible. Like, why is somebody going to pay me this amount of money? It's the same service I was offering down here. But when we changed our circle of influence, the value grows for the services they have. And what I was actually doing was solving a time problem for them, right? These successful entrepreneurs that play in these circles, they just don't have the time to do what I do. They want to give, they want to make more impact. They just didn't have the time to execute on it. So now when I go to them, their time is more valuable. Well, if I can save them time, the value of my offer goes up. So by Trevor introducing me to his network and showing me these skills to say, hey, you can change your pricing by just changing your audience, I went, holy smokes. And that'll never, ever, like, that is an incredible mentor, by the way, that he was able to take me in, teach me that, but then introduce me to his network and make it happen, as well as showing me along the way, wow, I think you're worth a lot more than what you're currently charging. And I'm going to prove it to you by putting you in touch with a few of my friends, and you
Yeah.
better not offer them anything less than 15 grand. And that's what moved me in a completely different direction.
Yeah. And that is so I have had the same exact experience, that the value of our gifts, of our unique abilities is different depending on who we serve. And I am far more valuable to some people than to others, for sure, because of who they are. And the first time I made an introduction, it was like the first time this happened, it was like getting beat over the head. It's like, okay, this is the experience that I hope the universe is like, Kevin, pay attention to this, because I made this connection for two specific people, and one of them came back to me 30 days later and said that one conversation added $1 million of revenue to their business in that 30-day period. And it blew me away because I'd never experienced that before, and of course I wanted to have a conversation, get all the details and all of that, which I did. And then that's how I discovered that, like, this is as much about who they are as it is about my gifts. And in fact, there's a lot of people that I was serving at that time that I'm like, they could never get a result like that because they don't have the foundational things in place to be able to get a result like that.
Totally.
And really, it's not even about the revenue. What was interesting is, like, this gal that had the result, she was like, Kevin, I mean, the revenue's great, but the real win is the impact that we're going to have on all those people who said yes, the impact that they are going to have on all those that they serve. That's the real win. And, and coming to realize this, just like you have, man, that when we figure that out, that's a game changer. Because I know, for me, I don't have any challenges with this anymore, but I used to put entrepreneurs on a pedestal if I thought they had done more or achieved more or were more successful than me, and I no longer do that, because I have come to find that it doesn't matter how successful somebody is. I don't give a dang whether they're running $1 million business, a $50 million business, a $300 million business. It doesn't matter. We're all doing the best we can with what we got. We all have very real problems and challenges. We all are just trying to solve those as quickly as we can so that we can make our biggest impact in the world. And it is about being of service, Yeah. So, man, this is really powerful stuff.
Yeah, it's honestly been one of the greatest gifts, and I teach it to everybody now. And honestly, all it is just asking yourself, where can I level up my circle?
Yeah.
It starts with one. I love introducing people the same as you. I know that if I put, person one and person two together, they could amplify each other's work. Why wouldn't I want to do that, to get that out there and make that happen? But I also know that if I can lean into somebody that maybe is in the, mid 6 tier and introduce them to some people in the 7 tier, they can see that potential as well. Oftentimes the hardest thing is, how do I break that barrier? Exactly what you said. I put these 7 and 8-figure, 9-figure entrepreneurs on a pedestal because they make so much money and they're so much smarter and they do all this. When you hang out with those kinds of people, you learn very quickly nothing's changed. They just found a way to make it work. They've often grinded. They've often faced bankruptcy. They're often still on the verge of, like, one day being multi 9-figure earners to the next day being bankrupt. Like, that's just entrepreneurship. And when you put them together and you understand that, you can start relating to them very differently. And especially, like I said, in the impact space, where you don't just go in there saying, oh, what is your, revenue earning? It's like, oh, what children do you support? What charities are you involved in? Where are you making impact? You can start building conversations. And then all of a sudden, you can value yourself based on the clients that you're serving, not what you put as your own limiting belief of, our price is only, $10,000. And we do that. And we have a custom package for our playbooks. And I purposely don't put a price, because when I start working with companies that are doing, 40, 50, 60 million dollars, I can't write them a package for 15, 20 grand. Their boards look at it and they think, well, they must be a new company. They must be smaller. What's their background? When we start writing contracts for 60, 70,000, nobody bats an eye. They just like, yep, this is in line with everything we pay. Sounds good. Here you go. Sign the check and out the door. And you're like, this is crazy when we take all that away. So I think it's absolutely amazing. I love it. And it's been one of the biggest influencers in my entire life, as well as I encourage everybody listening to go say, how can you level up your circle? Get in a Brandon Fong's birthday party where it's guys like you and I, that it's like, we just see the potential in growing our networks with high net worth individuals that want to make bigger impacts.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen. So for anybody listening to this is going, dang, Kev, I really like Randy, man. I love the way he shows up. How can they get more information on what you guys do? Any websites, any resources?
Yeah, you can go to gobigtogivebig.com. That's our source. You can go there. We have our links to our consulting, to our podcast, to our community. It's kind of the main hub for everything that we do. And then I'm on social medias at Randy Molland, Molland. And that allows, LinkedIn's a good space for me to hang out and chat with people and do stuff if you want to reach out there. But also on the LinkedIn's, Facebooks, and other social medias. I love interacting with people. I love talking all things entrepreneurship and philanthropy. That's kind of my wheelhouse and specialty. So anyone that wants to reach out and chat, I always love supporting them.
Perfect. Randy, I really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation. Like I shared with you, before we hit the record button, I was like, I just want you and I to just, I don't have a specific direction I want this conversation to go in. What the goal is I want the entrepreneurs, the founders, the CEOs who get to listen to this, I just want to have them be inspired to place a more intentional focus on creating more real, meaningful, rewarding, and profitable relationships in their own life. And Randy, with your help, we definitely delivered on that today. And
I
so
appreciate
thank
that.
you. Any last thing you feel led to share before we call it a wrap?
No, I mean, anyone that asks me, closing thoughts or something like that, the thing I like to leave with people is two things. One, people don't care how much you give, they care that you give. So stop worrying about how much you're donating and just go start doing some sort of impact. And the second thing is, more money isn't going to bring you more happiness, but how you use it will.
Yeah.
So those are two quotes that have, completely changed my life and have been a huge impact. So if anyone wants to take those two quotes and do something with them, they're two of the ones that have been super powerful for me.
Awesome. Well, Randy, once again, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation. Really appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, Kev. It's been a pleasure and super excited to have you in my network.
Absolutely.